What's up, tycoons? Welcome back to the Tycoon Talk YouTube channel, where we discuss everything personal finance all the way to stock market investing. It is yours truly, your host, the Tycoon Master himself, Godfred Buffy, and today's episode is a special one. Just as a reminder, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do so to the channel. Turn your notification bell on so you don't miss any future episodes. And if you truly enjoyed the video, give us a thumbs up and feel free to leave some comments on any future video topics you would like to see me cover. I'm wearing my Argentina uniform today, as you can see, because it is 2 days before Copa America finals between Argentina and Colombia. I'm a big Messi fan, and so I got to show out and show some love. In full transparency, I'm actually a big Colombia fan as well, and so I'm cool with either team winning. But let's talk about the topic that we have at hand today. How to retire your newborn child with just $5,000 invested and an additional $100 contribution on a monthly basis. Okay. Now, many of us might think this is actually impossible, but I am telling you, it is very, very doable. There's a lot of wealth building happening and a lot of things taking place right now. And as a parent, it is so important to do your best in giving your kids the best leverage and advantage in life, especially if you have the ability to do so. And one of the areas that we can all attest to and really understand that can benefit us is within our financial resources, right? Many of us might be building wealth for the first time in our generations or in our bloodline, right? And we can see some of the benefits and advantages that those that have had financial wealth passed down throughout the generations. We can see the benefits and the leverage they have in life in living a more fulfilling, full experience, having access to things and enjoying life really fully, right? And that's something that if you're on this channel watching this video or you subscribe, that's something that I know we all aspire to do, is to live a good, fulfilling life and have an impact in this world. And so it is very possible. And basically from the age of, you just had a newborn, your kid is 1 year old. By the time your kid gets to 60 years old, your kid can be a millionaire. So you can basically fully fund your kid's retirement simply with $5,000 and adding $100 a month. And I'm going to show you exactly how this works. And that's why we have this compound interest calculator in front of us. Okay. And we'll talk about it more in just a second. But I know you're probably watching this video right now and you're thinking, well, $1 million is not going to be worth $1 million 30 years from now or 60 years from now. By the time your kid gets to, retirement age of 60, for the most part, you're going to be like, well, it's not going to be worth $1 million. Well, I will tell you this, right? And this is why having a healthy money mindset and your belief system is important. Whatever amount that money is going to be 60 years from now is going to be more, or is going to benefit your kid significantly more than if you did not put no money aside and invested on your kid's behalf. That is just a simple fact of reality. Okay. So you want to have a positive attitude. And once you start seeing the money growing, I can promise you, you can find ways to contribute more than $100 a month, right? And so having that mindset is really important. So let's start discussing what we kind of see on the screen a little bit, right? And so this is a compound interest calculator. And how does this work? And how should you be, utilizing this tool to help you gauge, the financial performance or the potential wealth financially that you can pass down to your kids as they get older. Okay. So there's a compound interest calculator, and it's really a tool that helps you figure out how much money, right, that you will have in the future if you invest or save a certain amount of money as it earns interest over time. Now, the key word here, okay, pay attention closely. The key word is earned interest over time, right? Meaning the more time the money is invested, the more interest and the faster the exponential growth of that interest is going to be over time. And so it's extremely important that you invest for the long term and the long term alone, because the one thing that kids have over parents, the one biggest, most important leverage that kids have over their adult parents is time. Okay. Imagine if when you were 1 year old, your parents or somebody was able to invest on your behalf, and look at what that does. By the time you hit the age of 30 alone, you already have money that have grown and compounded 3, 4, 10 folds over the 30-year period. And so you turn 30 and you already have had money working on your behalf. That is why it's important to do these things early, right? And so we're going to do a quick example here of that $5,000 just by itself and what that would turn out to be, say, 60 years from now, right? Assuming you had a kid today or this year. And then we'll also do it $5,000 with $100 additional contribution into the stock market on a monthly basis and see what that looks like, right? Because sometimes seeing is believing. And when it comes to stock market investing, it can feel a bit, right, a bit abstract and kind of difficult to conceptualize and think, hey, this is actually possible, or this is what my money will look like over time. But this compound interest calculator does a great job of showing us what exactly it would actually look like over time. Okay. So the best way to utilize this is to, we're going to make a few hypothetical assumptions, right? And let's say your current age is, since we're doing this on behalf of your kid, let's say your kid is 1 year old today. Okay. So the moment you have a newborn, if you manage to contribute 5,000, you're going to see a huge difference in your kid's life and the leverage they have. Right. And let's say your kid plans on retiring at the age of 60. I mean, we're just using 60 because why not, right? 60 years for 5,000 to grow, you're going to see the magic take place. I got a nice little tea with me. It's a ginger tea. I don't drink coffee or anything of that nature. I'm a big tea fan, though. So if you have any tea suggestions, let me know. But let's continue. So your kid is 1 year old, right? And let's say the kid plans on retiring at the age of 60. Also, right now, the actual retirement age is 67 for full benefits, but that's mainly focused on, say, 401k contributions, right? This is something separate from 401k contributions. This is more so like a taxable brokerage account that you're investing on behalf of your kid, and your kid is the beneficiary as well, right? And then once your kid become of age, you can also teach them how to manage these accounts and how this works. And then once you feel like they're mature and they're doing a good job of managing it and comfortable enough, you can transfer it over to them and they can oversee it over the long haul, right? But again, here it says retirement age is 67, but that's because of 401k contributions, right? It's focused on like the traditional age of retirement. But who said we had to wait till 67 to retire? That's why we want to build additional streams of income and have various portfolios to help us get to retirement or live the better life quicker, right? So age is 1, retirement age in this scenario is 60. And let's say we contributed 5,000 as stated, right? So this is a one-time shot. Boom. We threw in 5,000 and we did not add a single penny. So how much will you contribute monthly is 0. And the S&P 500, which is really the stock market, and we'll talk about more of what that is after we go through this exercise and why you should be putting your money in there, okay? Over the long term, let's say over the last, 30 years or so, it has returned an average of 10 to 12%. This is not adjusted for inflation. So let's say typically with inflation, let's say it comes down to 8%. So 8 to 10%, give and take, right? But let's work with the 10% that they have here and see what 5,000 invested over the course of 60 years on your kid's behalf will produce. Look at that, right? This is your results. So $1,781,000. And all you did was put $5,000 away on your kid's behalf, added nothing to it, and at a 10% rate of return. So your 5,000 over 60 years has turned into almost 2 million. Now, yeah, I know you're like 60 years is a long time to wait. Well, guess what? How many people are 60 years old today and they can't even afford to take a day off from work, call in sick, pay their medical expenses, pay their rent, pay additional bills, right? Even live a comfortable life, even be able to give and pass something down to their kids. And in these times, there are many children that are basically responsible for taking care of their parents. But look at what this alone does for a child, or if your parents was able to do something like that on your behalf. I mean, think about it. And it's mind blowing. And this is really the power of compound interest, right? That is simply put, your money growing exponentially over the long term at a certain interest rate, or at a certain interest point, like I said earlier, right? So your actual money you contributed was $5,000, and the growth on it is $1,776,000. Impressively, in this scenario, right, it would touch 1 million at the age of 2078. And this is crazy because right now we're in 2024, right? So if we do 2078 minus 2024, because that's the year we're in, your kid would actually reach the $1 million mark at the age of 54, right? So your kid will actually be a millionaire before the age of 60. This is insane, right? And this is at 10%. Now let's kind of factor in inflation and bring this down to 8%, and then let's see what we get, right? So with inflation adjusted, 8% gives us $552,000 at the age of 60, which is significantly better, like I was saying, than what it would have been if you didn't put any money aside at all, okay? And I don't think we are really appreciating and understanding how massive this is. $5,000 turns into $552,000 at 8% return on average. But at 10% return on average, it turns into 1.7 million. This is crazy. And this is a tool and access that many of us have in being able to invest in the stock market, right? We know life is hard. We know money is always difficult and sometimes tough to come by. Yes, there's bills, there's responsibilities. But I can promise you, the pain and what your kids will experience if you do not do these things on their behalf is massive, okay? You do not want to put your kids in a position where they have to basically scratch and claw just to survive, let alone thrive. And I know as parents, there are a lot of things you won't do for yourself, but when it comes to your kids, you will do any and everything for your kids. And this is one of those things that you must prioritize if you are a parent or thinking about becoming one, okay? So at 8%, this is what we're looking at. Now, let's go back to 10%, right? So actually, let's stick to 8% for now. So if you manage to, even after that 5,000 initial contribution, right, you put in 5,000 in the S&P 500, and then every month after that, you decided, hey, I'm actually going to add, say, $100 every single month. Guess what? This is insane. That money, your $5,000 plus $100 every single month over the course of 60 years, right? Like I said, as your kid get older, you teach them how to manage it. They can also continue adding $100 to it. And so by the time they get to 60, guess what? This is what they would have. $2 million. Listen, I need a drink. $2 million. Bro, do you understand what this means? $2 million by the time your kid reaches the age of 60. And guess what? You put that 5,000 initial contribution, and then the $100 over the $100 you put into the account and invested in the S&P 500 over 60 years, right, was $70,800. So this $70,800 plus the 5,000 literally grew to 2.1 million. This is incredible. And I a lot of people, as you can see, I'm amped up. I'm excited about this. Why? Because think about what this does for your kid, your kids' kids, and additional future generations, what they can afford to do, experiences they can afford to have. They don't have to live in a scarcity mentality. They can contribute to things. They can give more, right? They can do more charitable contributions. They can work on things that they actually want to work on, as opposed to going towards a certain career path because of job security and safety, right? They can do the things that they want to do and are passionate about. I mean, the tangible pieces are there, but the intangible benefits or returns is so important, right? The peace of mind, the flexibility, the fact that they don't spend and trade all their time for money because they already have the money working for them, even when they were 1 year old, all the way up to adulthood and retirement, right? And that's at 8%. If the market continues to return, say 10%, bro, man, hold on. Let me go back to 8% because now I want to see at what point does this touch a million. Okay, so it would touch a million at 2074, right? So what does that look like? So we had 2074 minus 2024, right? So that means your kid will touch millionaire status at the age of 50. That is powerful. And it's crazy because one of my previous videos was on millionaire statistics and their behavior, habits, and characteristics. And one of the things that was there is that the average millionaire doesn't become a millionaire until the age of basically 50, until the age of 57, actually, right? Your kid can have $1 million invested by the time they reach the age of 50. And this is one of the easiest and simplest ways to do it, right? With just $5,000, and you add $100 every month, and it shouldn't eat up into too much things, right? Let's see what it would look like at 10%, and that is $6 million. Yo, at 10%, it is serious, right? And your kid would even reach $1 million status much earlier than that, basically 8 years earlier. So your kid could be a millionaire if the market returns 10% for the next 60 years. The kid can reach a millionaire at the age of what we said it was 50 last time. Now, so you subtract 8 out of that, you're looking at basically 42 years old, and your kid is a millionaire, assuming a 10% return. Do not underestimate the power of compound interest. Okay. So this is something I wanted to share with you guys because I don't think we really understand how impactful and some of the simple things we can do to set the kids up for success, to set the future up for success, right? This goes a long way. So do not put this off as a parent. And if you have any comments or questions about how to use this compound interest calculator, or, some of the things, you can go in here and I'll link I'll put this link in the description or in the caption area. And so you can go in here and kind of play with it a little bit, right? Play with the numbers in here, fluctuate it, see what it would look like based on what decisions you decide to take and your timeline that you adjust here, okay? So this is about investing $5,000 into the S&P 500 by itself, doing nothing else, or you can do that $5,000 and add an additional $100 over the long term, and you can provide your kids with a really good, comfortable lifetime and basically have their retirement funded, okay? Now, so what is the S&P 500? And this is something that's important we need to talk about, right? Because that's where you're investing the money into. And like any investment, the most important thing is to understand what that investment is, what you're putting your money into, and why you want your money there, right? And so let's go on Yahoo Finance. I have it queued up already, and we can look at what the S&P 500 is real quick. So let's look at the summary of that. And the fund is, so the S&P 500 is basically a stock market index that tracks the performance of 500 of the largest publicly traded companies in the United States, right? And these companies are chosen based on their market capitalization, meaning quote unquote their value based on their stock, right? So if you was to buy an entire company, the market cap is what you would, that's essentially the value of the company that you would be paying for. Okay, so these companies are chosen based on their market capitalization and other criteria or standards that they must meet in order to be part of this 500, individual companies that are put together and being tracked, right? And there are also standards and expectations that they must meet in order to remain as part of this S&P 500 group, okay? And the S&P 500 is widely regarded as the benchmark for the overall health of the U.S. stock market and the economy because it actually includes a diverse range of industries. And we're going to dive a lot more into that. So you basically have exposure to all the sectors and industries in the U.S. economy. And I'll show you more information on that shortly, like I said. Now, whenever you hear people talk about the market is up or the market is down, for the most part, they are often referring to the changes in this S&P 500 index, okay? So what are some of the historical performance of this fund, right? Well, let's talk about it a little bit. So it's really important that you invest for the long term because the long-term average return, like we just saw in the compound interest calculator, is between 10 to 12% per year. And if we adjust for inflation, is around, say, 8%, right? And this includes both the fund price going up, right? Meaning the stock price of this fund actually going up over time, and reinvesting the dividends that the fund actually pays back into it over time, okay? And even though this is a long-term average return, keep in mind that in the short term, the market can be volatile, and it fluctuates quite a bit over the years, right? So, for example, in 2019, the market was up 31%. In 2020, it was up 18%, right? In 2021, it was up 28%, which is crazy when you think about it, because we just went through that COVID cycle, and yet the market was doing well, right? In 2022, stock market was down negative 18%, right? And in 2023, just last year, it was up 26%. And at the time of this recording in 2024, it is up 18% so far in 2024. So most of the years, you will see that the stock market overall is actually up. There will be some years that is down and some moments where it takes some downturns, right? So there's a lot of fluctuations that do happen. So this is just a quick summary of what the S&P 500 is. Now let's look at basically the holdings of it, right? Like what's actually inside it and what are we buying when we put our money in the S&P 500 index, right? If we pay attention to the sector weighting, let's focus on that first, and then we'll look at some of the other areas on this screen in a bit. Like I said, you have exposure to all the industries and sectors in the U.S. economy. And as you can see, technology makes up 31.52% of the fund. Financial services makes up 12.4%, healthcare 12%, consumer cyclical 10.03%, so 10%, communication services 9%, industrials 8%, consumer defensive 6%, energy is almost 4%, utilities is 2.5%, right? Real estate is 2.1%, and basic materials is 2%. So you really have exposure to all of the companies worth owning or that are performing at a certain standard level, right, that you want to be part of. You have them all consolidated and put together in this fund. So this is incredible. The reason why technology holds such a bigger percentage is because the technology sector is always going to produce the most returns for investors, and the technology companies make the most money, right? I mean, we don't have to look far. You look at NVIDIA, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Alphabet, which is Google. We look at Meta platforms, right? Previously known as Facebook. I mean, you look at all the technology companies. There's no, aside from, even if you don't know the financial details of these companies, you can look at the value and the use case and how we utilize all these systems, resources, services, products, hardware, software, you name it, right? Like the whole world literally spends on it. So they make the most money. Financial services do an incredible job too, because guess what? The economy, everything is built on the back of financial services, right? In order for you to even get paid from your work, the money has to go to a financial firm, meaning whether it's Chase or Wells Fargo or Bank of America, right? The money has to go into your bank account. So all the financial services do well. Healthcare is also another significant portion because we have to invest in protection and safety, and we have to invest to protect ourselves from diseases, illnesses, pandemics. We just ran through COVID, right? And then also from just old age and deterioration and some of the chronic issues and challenges that we face. So we got to protect ourselves, not just human life, but also livestock, right? Whether it's cows, pigs, you name it, livestock, agriculture. You can kind of consider all of that healthcare as well. It's important, right? So from drugs, medication, surgery, all of it, healthcare altogether. And then you have consumer cyclical and communication services, right? Communication services is no brainer. We can't communicate, we have a problem. You know what I mean? And then consumer cyclical is really all the things that we tend to spend money on consistently over time, no matter what's happening, right? And so there's like a recurring expense that we have to, all of us as a society, spend money on consistently. And I highlight these because they make up the biggest percentages based on industry and sector weight in this S&P 500. And it's important because literally when you look at the fabric of life and our way of living, it is super heavily centered on these areas here. Yes, every sector, every industry is important. Don't get me wrong. But some of them are going to produce better returns and wealth for us than others, right? So that's the sector weighting. Let's shift over to the left side here. We have the top 10 holdings, which really makes up 34% of the total asset. And the reason why this is important is because, again, like I was saying, sometimes you might want to invest in individual companies, but that's not really what you're looking for. The reason why is because individual companies are a bit too risky, right? And sometimes you might be like, well, I want to own Microsoft. I want to own Apple. I want to do this. I want to do that. Guess what? You have all of that in this fund right here that you're looking at, right? So the top 10 holdings makes up 34%. In here, Microsoft is the biggest percentage, basically 7%. You have Apple at 6.3, Nvidia at 6%, Amazon at 3.6, Meta Platforms 2.3, Alphabet, aka Google, basically at 2% and 2 to 3% combined, right? And then you have Berkshire Hathaway. That's Warren Buffett's company, and that is at 1.7%, followed by big healthcare pharma company Eli Lilly and Co. 1.4%, and then a financial firm here we have JPM, which is JP Morgan, right? So these guys make up 34% of this fund. Now the craziest thing is nobody's making more money than these guys combined. No individual stock. That's why individual stock picking is very difficult, right? But by simply owning this, you really own the entire market, and that's what you want to have, okay? So let's look at performance quickly before we kind of summarize everything up. And this is what I was saying earlier as to why it is important to invest for the long term, right? So even if we show more, let's focus on the annual total returns here real quick in terms of the historical performance of this fund, right? All the way from 2011, it's only had 2 years of negative returns, right? So from 2011 up to 2023, it's had only 2 years of negative returns. And when we kind of add those negative returns up, right, that's what? Negative 4.5 plus negative 18.9. So we're looking at what? Roughly negative 22 point change. When you compare that to all the positive years in the green, you will start to realize quickly why when you invest, you want to focus on long-term investing, right? And you do not want to miss out on any of this for your kid and for your family. And you don't want to try and time the market because you will not perform well if you try and time the market. And picking individual stocks, like I said, is extremely risky, especially for parents that don't, most parents already don't have time. They don't have the energy. They don't even know. Many people don't know how to actually go and look at individual stocks and do all these research. I mean, some things in this video, hopefully most things in this video make sense. And if it doesn't, it's also easy to understand why some of these things may not make sense, right? Because not everybody's working in financials. Not everybody works for a financial company. Not everybody has the time to look at this. You're worried about feeding your kids. You're working all the time. You're trying to make ends meet. There's a million things on your plate. So you don't have time for all of this additional stuff. That is why you want to take the simplest approach, the easiest way to close the wealth gap and give your kids the best leverage by simply putting your money in the S&P 500. These are incredibly attractive returns. This is amazing returns over time, right? So again, the average is around 10%. Like we said, over the last 30 years, we saw in that Dave Ramsey calculator, compound interest calculator. But at any given year, you can see just the swings, right? It can go from 1.8 to 16, 32, 13, 1, 12, 21, negative 4.5, right? All the way up to where we're currently at with the end of 2023. This is so important to understand because this is where you're going to get conviction and understand as to why you want to invest. We all know that on the surface level, investing is good. It's important. We need to do it, especially as a parent and you have a kid. You need to do it times 10 or do it or basically contribute as much as you can, right? But seeing, again, like I said, it's kind of abstract a little bit, but seeing what you're putting your money into, where your money is going, the companies that's in this fund, the potential returns you can see over the long term should encourage you, and you should be excited to, even if you don't know enough to say start or just keep putting money in, it should spark an interest in you being able to question things and start doing some homework and some research and reaching out and learning more about this because it's going to help you and your kids, right? So, yeah, I think this covers a good bit of it. Now, I know some of you probably might be looking at it in terms of like holdings, right? So we just covered holdings. We looked at the top 10. There's a lot more companies in there. There's not that many turnovers in this fund. And the expense ratio, meaning fees, is actually extremely low, right? And is there a risk associated with it? For sure. Every investment carries some risk. But overall, this is the best fund you want to be into because the stock market returned 10 to 12%, right? Adjusted for inflation, 8%. Hedge funds basically make 4% on average. 4%. So the market itself is doing twice as better as a lot of these financial firms and hedge funds that have a lot of money, resources, been doing it for 20 years in their career. The average retail investor, meaning most of our newer investor or, most of the public that are doing individual investing, the average return is 2%. Okay, you are barely beating inflation, despite all the hype and all the stuff you see online. Over the long term, retail investors returning 2%. So you do not want to be getting 2%, right? Because that's nothing. And you also don't want 4% because these hedge funds are making 4% and they have the craziest fees. But the market is giving you 8 to 10% without doing absolutely nothing. And all you did was put $5,000 in, an additional $100 every month for the long term over 60 years for your kid. That's a beautiful thing. All right. And with that being said, you might be wondering, well, where am I going to find, say, $5,000? Well, I'm going to give you a few tips because the truth of the matter is many of us, maybe not all, but many of us can actually find a way to put $5,000 away invested in the S&P 500. If you think giving this type of leverage an advantage to your kid where they can have $500,000 plus, $1 million plus, $2 million plus, maybe even $6 million plus, if you think that's not worth finding ways to invest that $5,000 to $5,000 plus $100 monthly, look at the trade-off you're making. Look at what you're communicating to yourself, to your family, to your kids, right? And all you had to do was manage to find ways to make $5,000 and then every month add $100, right? And what are some of the ways you can do this? For example, tax returns. Some of us get $2,000, $3,000. If we have multiple kids, maybe $5,000 to $10,000 just in tax returns alone. So that's one of the ways you can kind of come up with some quick money. Put $5,000 away. When you get the tax returns, don't go and spend it. Don't go and take flights. It can basically retire your kid. So think about that. Look at the benefit there. A little side hustle. Maybe you pick up a little bit of overtime to get some extra money, and that extra money you save it up and then put it into the market. All right. There are other things you can do. Some of us have talents, some skills. Some of us cook, some of us bake, some of us like making clothes, some of us know how to DJ, right? So you can pick up some of these extra gigs, extra projects. You can sell your services or goods, and that can help generate a little bit of extra income. And that money can then be set aside and invested into the S&P 500. So your kid can also benefit from some of these incredible historical performances, right? Look at these returns. Beautiful. Or another way you can do is work it in your budget. Maybe for this year, you're like, you know what? For 1 year straight, I'm going to save $420 a month for a year. And then that way I'll have $5,000 to contribute to my kids' retirement fund. If you happen to have a partner and you is a 2-parent household, you're both living together, well, guess what? You can split that, right? So each person can come up with $210 a month for a year. Boom. And you put it in there. Or if you can do the $5,000 out the gate, that's great. One person comes with $2,500, another comes with $2,500. You put it together and you get it cooking. All right. This is extremely important. And the reason why I'm making this video is because we know that in society, there are a lot of challenges. Not everybody has access, and in this day and age, there's a lot of negativity, a lot of division, a lot of systemic challenges as well on so many levels. But guess what? We are still, if you're fortunate enough to have access to the U.S. economy, to the U.S. stock market, to some of these tools, to these funds. Think about it. You have to take full advantage of it because it is everybody that came before us and our current blood, sweat, and tears that is basically contributing to the economy, to the stock market, right? We all contribute to it. We go to work. Our work has impact, has meaning, helps with services and products, and it helps the world move forward in productivity and providing goods for all of us and everyone around the world. And so if you have access to the U.S. economy, don't think it's designed to work against you. We all can take advantage of it. Why? You can get your fair share because you work hard. You work hard for it. You contribute to it every day. Think about it. Think about all the money you spend with these companies that we just looked at, right? And this is just 10. This is just the top 10 companies out of 500. This is, look at all these industries. How much of your money and your energy and your time and sweat and tears are going to these companies in all these areas? You help build them and you can get your fair share of the piece of the pie, right? And so with all the challenges that we face, despite everything, guess what? We still have access to this. That's why financial literacy and education in general is really the biggest equalizer. Because knowing this information now that you're equipped with this information, now you know what you're missing out on if you don't do this for yourself or even on the behalf of your kid or kids, right? You do not want to miss out on this. The U.S. economy and the system works, but you have to know how to leverage it and how to use it. The easiest way to do it and put your kids at a huge advantage in life is by investing in the stock market, owning the entire market. And so they actually build they actually build your wealth for you and your family. Okay. So I will leave you guys here with it. That brings us to the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Leave some comments if you have questions about anything that you want me to dive a little bit deeper on this subject, on this video. Definitely let me know. Subscribe if you haven't. And I urge you, and this is a call to action, not because I want to get views, but because a video like this can be the difference between generational wealth and passing down additional poverty and more trauma to the next generation. And so don't be selfish. If you were able to watch this video, find it beneficial, and you begin taking steps towards wealth building, make sure you share it with others, whether it's your friends, family, cohorts, acquaintances, your significant other. Share it. We need to talk more about money. We need to talk about the stock market. We need to talk about how we can set the future up, leave a better world for the future and the kids, right? And so part of my mission with this platform and this channel is to really debunk the myth, remove all the tabooness and some of the cultural stipulations that has been laid on top brick by brick and has literally kind of hidden some of this information from us. We need to just break all those generational curses, and this is a major part of those generational curses. And that's part of the reason why this channel exists, for your benefit and for everybody else to also benefit from it. So share it with as many people as you want, so that you can encourage them to also make progress within their own ways, and so they can contribute to building wealth for the next generation. With that being said, I will see you in the next video. My name is Godfrey Bafi, the tycoon himself. Take care.